In Fallout New Vegas, you have many weapons at your disposal in order to lay waste to your enemies. And for most of you watching, you have more than likely heard this kind of intro enough times that there's practically no way for me to add anything new to it. You already know that there are small weapons and large weapons, and even weapons in between. You already know that there are weak weapons and powerful weapons, and then there's today's challenge that the majority of you heathens decided to make me suffer with. And that is, can you beat Fallout New Vegas with only throwing spears? Now, before we get into the game, we must first be born, and that all starts at Doc Mitchell's. After making me, and being assured that I do look better than Jonah Rivers, it was time to assign special points. Normally, I don't go into this with any strategy in mind, because I always pick the same skills, the same traits, and focus more on exploration rather than the main quest line. But for this, I needed to suffer. The throwing spears are a strength-based weapon, which I don't normally put points into, but for today, that means maxing out strength, and the rest really does not matter. I sat down on the couch and answered some questions, and I chose melee weapons, sneak, and speech as my tag skills, and I chose skilled and built to destroy as my traits. Now think about this and consider what it is that I have just done. Built to destroy gives an additional 3% chance for critical hits, but weapon conditions drop 15% faster. This is only a benefit with no drawbacks here. Throwing spears are a single-use weapon, and their condition is practically worthless. I end up gaining 3% more critical hit chance with no drawbacks for this challenge. This is absolutely wonderful. But wait, the game is sure to screw me over. Just wait. After picking my skills and traits, I left Doc's house to set off on my own adventure. Now, here's the thing you need to know now. I have already done this once already, but my recording got corrupted and forced me to have to reset the entire challenge. Well, why didn't I just restart from where it got corrupted? Because that would have made sense. So what I did this second time was cheat, and here's why. Throwing spears are not common weapons in the game. Besides getting them from the Legion, there are a few vendors that will sell them, but that itself is rare. In my first run, I started with 10, and by the time I left Nipton, I had none. Throwing spears will deal good damage, sometimes great if you're lucky, but they are hard to find, and don't worry, that's not their only fault. We'll burn that bridge when we get there, because right now, it's all about the here and now. I learned from my first run that throwing spears would be hard to find, and I refused to ever join the Legion, so I had a plan. In this run, I gave myself an ungodly amount of spears to come back to for when I run out of sticks to throw. Think of it. This challenge is supposed to show how hard the game is when restricted to only one weapon, regardless of its damage output. If Paul from Mitten Squad can beat the game without attacking anything or taking any damage, then of course you can beat the game with a weapon that deals damage. It's just common sense. So if you have a problem with that, leave a dislike. It's not like anyone's going to see it anyways, but I will. And with my now near infinite throwing spears safely contained in this dumpster that only I know about, it was time to start leveling up, and that all starts with the Ghost Town Gunfight quest in Good Springs. One of my default rules is that Joe Cobb always dies before I start the quest. I have done this since day one, and it's a tradition that I will always adhere to. After his death, I went and talked to Ringo and was told to talk to the people into helping our rebellion of the Powder Empire. I went and talked to Sunny Smiles and got her to join. Honestly, I think it's impossible to have her not help you. And I even convinced Trudy to join in on the fun. Also not really hard. I didn't have the time nor worry about Chet or Doc, so I was ready to throw some spears. I talked to Ringo again and told Sunny that we were ready to go, and I marched out to meet the dead man that thought they could handle me. I can't even handle me, so what hopes do they even have? I realized that I hadn't put armor on, whoops, and I threw my spears at the would-be convicts that, wait a minute, did you notice that? That extra spear that went by the screen at incredible speed. Well, let me tell you something. I didn't notice it, and it was only after the fight that I discovered what tragedy had just happened. After the scuffle, I noticed Sunny had a throwing spear on her side. Normally she uses a rifle, and that could only mean one thing. I ran back to my super secret dumpster, and oh ye gods no, she took all of my throwing spears. And don't even try to tell me to pick them off of her because I tried, and in no sense of the word did it work. You cannot take away 39,593 throwing spears and get away with it. Devastated by this loss, I had no choice but to spawn in more. And if you don't agree with this, or feel as if it's still cheating, go cry me a river. We are far past the point of caring now. After my stash was replenished, it was time to head towards Prim, and I found out exactly how good and bad the spears are. You see, when throwing the spears, your guy doesn't just throw them, he has to do a slight toss and catch before throwing. Well, why does this matter? Because it basically means that you have to not only time for how far the spear has to go and how fast it's going to be going, but now you have to take into account the second it takes for the toss animation before the throw. It's not long, but when you're cornered and have to make throws quickly, it's a lifetime nearly. Not only that, but spears are buggy in that sometimes when you throw one, the spear will not be visible, but you'll still get the kill, or at least damage if it hits. And something tells me that spears were not meant to be used in this capacity. While inside the Bison Steve Hotel, I saved the wannabe deputy, talked to the NCR, went up to the outpost and informed them of law being needed in Prim, and I made my way to Nipton, but not before killing some Jackal gang members and seeing just how strong the throwing spears are. Currently, they are dealing 41 points of damage, and remember, they have additional 3% chance for criticals. But not only that, because they are quiet, it is far easier to get sneak kills if you miss. So for being so powerful, what exactly makes them suck? It's the fact that their accuracy is so freaking awful. In VATS, your chance of hitting a target might say 95%, but that might as well be a big fat 0, because when an enemy is rushing towards you, it's more than likely not to hit as it speeds by their sides or even their heads, unless they're more than 50 feet away or if they're stationary. Their accuracy means that enemies are able to close in well before you're able to actually hit them. At Nipton, I decided to test my luck and see if I could hit the Legion scumbags without being noticed, and it turns out you actually can kill most enemies without being detected. If you hit their holstered weapons, it will still hurt them, but they will then become hostile towards you. Someone more attractive and smarter than me should see if you can beat the game with only stealth kills. I'm looking at you, Nurbit. I will say that I did run into far more Legionnaires in this run than I did my first run. It wasn't anything bad, but I thought it was just weird because that would have given me more chances for spears in my first attempt. Oh well, it's a bit late for that now, and we are cheaters, and cheaters always win. At least that's what my middle school football coach always said. In Novak, I spoke with Dusty about his cattle, and killed the Nightkin that was there to exterminate them. And right quick, I do want to say that in my first run before speaking with Dusty during the day, I had to buy medical supplies from the Wandering Doctor in Novak, and just happened to notice that the Nightkin was there. I killed them, then talked to Dusty, and completed the mission. Here, I wasn't so lucky, but again, long before midnight when the Nightkin was supposed to arrive, I found that he was here at around 7 to 8 p.m. After helping the poor sod, I made my way past the Gibson scrapyard and went straight for the 188 trading post, and from there, my way towards Ripcon headquarters to test out how well spears really work. Needless to say, they worked great, and if I'm ever needing to come here in other playthroughs, you can bet this is how I'm going to be doing it. I grabbed the power armor, as well as the mission report, and left the building in search of browner, more dusty pastures. And I figured, hey, while I'm here, I might as well kill all the fiends and take their heads to Monroe to claim the bounties, and more importantly, gain the much needed XP. I started with Driver Nafai, I then got Violet, and then I went after Ship, Cook. Here's the problem with the whole using only throwing spears gimmick. It was really hard to avoid hitting the head, because after you throw it, if the fiends ran into the spear with their dome cavity, it kinda makes the bounty aspect worthless. However, I was able to get all the heads in pristine condition and make my way over to McCarran Air Force Base to collect my rewards. Afterwards, I went to the gunrunners to sell what I had stolen and to buy better armor while I was at it. It's worth noting that this entire time I was working with very few stim packs, so it was actually important that I made it to some place to buy more and quickly. I got in the free side and entered the old Mormon fort, where I then spent about an hour or longer waiting in place farming for stim packs, Radaway, and doctor's bags. Once my guy had aged about 21 years, I was now finally old enough to super gamble, and it was off to the Tops Casino for me to settle a not so old score. Honestly, it's like 2 hours old at this point, not really an old score. It was here that another weakness of the throwing spears made itself known. Enemies do not hold still for long, so you need to act fast to hit them with the thrown weapon like a throwing spear. And if you get hurt, you can be stun locked briefly and not throw the spear. But I don't have time to waste. I'm in a hurry because I have other things of equal importance to do. I killed all the chairmen and their Fink leader and took what was rightfully not mine and made like an ant and rolled out. Next on my list was to go pay a visit to Grandma Pearl, who lives in an airport that rains down lethal love and affection on those who come too close. I spoke with Pearl, left to finally go tell Hayes to pick a sheriff to support Prim, and I made my way to NCRCF to sort out some thugs who had not realized yet that they also owe me money. They say that death carries with him a scythe, but that couldn't be any further from the truth. I would know. I caused quite a bit of death while I was there, and all I carried with me was some sticks with an attitude. It wasn't easy, but one by one, they fell before me. And for some reason, the ex-sheriff guy decided to phase kinda in and out of reality here. Not really sure what to make of that, but once my slaughter was done, the NCRCF facility was nothing more than an empty husk. Speaking of husks, I had another location that I had to go visit, and luckily, it wasn't too far. I paid a visit to the Brotherhood of Steel to let them know that their men failed to bring home the bacon. I didn't have any either, but if I did, I still wouldn't share it with them anyways. I told them of their fallen brothers, and how did they thank me? By strapping an explosive collar to my neck. I should file an HR report. This is totally without consent. They told me to do away with the NCR Ranger, and I couldn't come back or even leave until I did so. I got that waste of time out of the way and knew that next time I meet up with them, it would not be as a friend. For now, my mission was elsewhere. I had leveling up to do, and plenty of other things to kill. I spoke with Neil about Black Mountain and convinced him to overthrow the evil government rule. And here, I will say, I got the greatest shot I could ever hope for. Just look at it. How can anyone not agree that this was an incredible throw? Absolute perfection. I then got a good shot on the Nightkin sniper that uses the Annabelle rocket launcher by breaking said launcher with my attitude sticks, forcing him to use a hunting rifle shortly before dying. I went and freed Raoul so that way I could kill Tabitha and got another level up. Now it was back to the boomers to help out and get some things done. I killed some ants, left for some reason, I'm not really sure exactly why. Went to Vault 22, but didn't enter, again for some reason, and I made the biggest mistake of my life. As I was walking, I saw an old cabin up on the hillside. Curiosity got the better of me, and I had to go up there. I had to figure out what it was. If only I had been warned. If only I had known the dangers. Cazadors. Cazadors were everywhere, and they're not easy to hit with throwing spears because you already know why. After so many heart-pounding minutes, I finally found out what was inside the building. Nothing. I mean, there was stuff, but it wasn't anything worthwhile. A few caps, a lot of junk, a place to sleep, and some health items, but overall, nothing worth celebrating. Which sucks because I had to kill about 8 Cazadors just to get here, only to be sorely disappointed. I'm starting to feel depressed like the liberals that voted for Sleepy Joe. After that terrible experience, and a need to feel better, I decided to go over to the Sunset Sarsaparilla factory to kill a few things and gain some slight XP, and I also let old Festus draw a while. You know, just to change the pace of the game for a moment. And then I headed out, back into the waste to go after some cons, who also suddenly realized they owed me some money. By the way, it's been a while, and you haven't even seen my stats yet. Here's where they are now. I will say I spent a good long time here in Red Rock Canyon because I found that sneak attacks not only guarantee critical damage, but that successful sneak attacks oftentimes do not result in enemies turning hostile so long as you don't become detected during or immediately after the kill, or if you don't kill the specific NPCs, like Papa Khan for example. If you kill him, even while hidden with a stealth boy, the entire house will know it was you, and you can't really get around it unless you kill everyone else inside the house first. Once the inside was clear, I moved outside and slowly made my way around, being sure to kill them all for the sake of completion. When I was satisfied with my work, I was finally off to meet with the Big H himself, Mr. House. You see, I was planning this from the beginning. I was pulling strings you didn't even know were there. This was a very long play, but it has finally come full swing, and I can now tell you what it is. Because I will never do a Legion playthrough, I only have 3 choices I can make. I can join House, I can join the NCR, or I can join Yes Man. I'm not fond of Yes Man, but I don't like always picking the NCR, so that only leaves one option. I will side with House, and we will keep New Vegas independent. After talking to him and watching his display of what the Platinum Chip can do, I was off to wander around and get some more XP. My first stop was Novak to take care of Boone's little quest. I then went on to do the Helios 1 stuff, which is where Streamlabs really decided to bend me over and screw me like Biden is screwing America. As I was passing the scrapyard, my recording locked up, just like it had done the first run. I am starting to get convinced that Grandma Sparkles really is Old Lady Gibson in this game. But I'm not turning around and doing this run again. No, not for a third time. All you need to know is that I salvaged the solar array parts to take back to Nellis, I activated the plant where power is shared with everyone, and I went back to Nellis, fixed the array, and started to help the doctor heal the 3 wounded boomers. And it is here that the recording finally came back and unlocked itself from the grip of death. If you don't think this counts or that it disqualifies the run, then leave a dislike. Regardless of the failure of Streamlabs, I went to the fort and had to talk with Caesar about going into the substation to upgrade the Securitrons. I got inside, uploaded the upgrade, and started to set loose the great death of the fort. Remember, sneak attacks do not instantly register nearby enemies as hostile unless you get detected during the kill or immediately after. So I went and snuck around the fort, being sure to kill every last one of them, besides the slaves, and eventually, after a long while, I made it into Caesar's tent. This is where my slaughter had to stop. For now. You see, inside, there was no way to remain hidden, and I didn't have a stealth boy, so now the problem was just getting one. And I knew exactly where to go. Back in Novak, and to the Repcon testing facility. But first, I had to kill the rest of those at the fort. It took a few tries, but Daddy always gets his way. And once there was no one left besides Caesar and his few goons in the tent, I was all set to retrieve my stealth boy. This part was so easy that I managed to pick up a stealth boy off a dead Nightkin before making it near the complex, which is good because I didn't want to deal with the area anyways. And I took out the ones I knew could be killed while hidden and left only Caesar and his main thug to be dealt with for last. I wish I could say it was hard, but it wasn't. After that was all done, I went back to Cottonwood Cove to finish the job and killed all the Legion goons there, as well as freeing the slaves. It's been a while, so I had to have my armor patched up, and now it was time to go back to the boomers. I listened to the kid talk a while, I talked to Pearl about the lady in the water, was told to speak to Loyal about the lady in the water, I then talked to Jack about not drowning while going to get the lady in the water, and I made my way to Lake Mead to rise the broken plane out of the water. I got the support of the boomers for the upcoming battle and spoke with House yet again. This time, it was to take care of the concerns of the Omertas and their sudden lack of complaints. To speed by this, I went in and talked to the receptionist. Got told to talk to Caccino, where I stole his journal after he was very unnice to me. I gave it back in exchange that he helps me stop them from whatever it is that they are doing. I talked to Troik and took some negative karma just to get his help, because at this point, I wasn't about to deal with his whole fiasco. Like, I could have gotten him out of his debt, but I was short on time and wasn't wanting to take any extra trips. So far, the game has been working great, and I wasn't going to push my luck. After I got all the information from Troik, I placed the thermite and destroyed the guns. Then it was a matter of dealing with Sal and Nero. I, of course, can't hurt them, so this part was going to be tricky. Caccino would have to be the one to kill them, and he has a very low health pool, so I was prepared to do this a lot. Thankfully, it only took one try, and the hardest part of this run was now over. Now, it's time to talk to House. He wanted me to put an end to the Brotherhood of Steel, much to my dismay, but it has to be done. I went to their bunker again to collect the key cards, and while there, I got the surprise of a lifetime when that ungrateful hag with the followers somehow ended up in the bunker to pester me about bugging Mr. House's system. How this happened, I couldn't tell you, but let's just say that she might have gotten in the bunker, but she wasn't leaving it either. After the Brotherhood was dealt with, House then wanted me to keep the president safe. You know, the one in New Vegas. I don't think I'd really lift a finger to protect the one we got now. Good lord, no. At Hoover Dam, it was a simple matter of picking the redundant detonator off the would-be assassin and reporting it to Ranger Grant. Once that was out of the way, House then wanted me to go to the El Dorito substation, activate it so we can finally start the second battle of Hoover Dam. Once I resupplied and assured I had enough medical supplies to survive the final stretch, I made my way slowly around the dam, taking out who I needed to and sparing those I didn't. Sneak attacks were still a must if you could land a few before being spotted, and I made my way into the last campsite where all I had to do was kill the legate and his minions. Hitting any of them caused them to go hostile, and being hidden just not to be possible. But with enough effort, I was able to kill the legate, kill off the last few troops, and had one last battle to win. I spoke with General Oliver about taking over the Mojave, forcing him to stand down, and with that, I beat Fallout New Vegas with only throwing spears. Thank you guys for watching this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Leave a dislike if you didn't. I have to admit, this wasn't as much of a challenge as I thought it would have been. Sure, the accuracy is atrocious, and some of the animations not working made it difficult, but with enough patience, it wasn't really all that bad. I wonder what it would have been like if I had tried something different, like a different weapon, maybe one that didn't deal a lot of damage. Say what you want about Fallout New Vegas. It is arguably the best Fallout title ever released. The Xbox Store, the PlayStation Store, and even the Steam Store all agree that the game is a buggy, crash-riddled game of near perfection, that people questioned how such an unstable game can be so loved. But I think they're all asking the wrong question. What they should be asking is, can you beat Fallout New Vegas with only a shovel? Before we get too deep into this, we have a few things to go over first. Being introduced into the world by Doc Mitchell for starters, and then naming me. I named myself Knight Mike, and if you don't get that reference, then you're a disgrace. Looks don't matter because I'm not some pervert that looks at his character's butt the whole time, and it was time to assign points at the Vigor Tester. I have always been dedicated to strategy and the logical approach, so let's look at this in the most illogical way possible and see what it is that we can do to make this work the bestest. The shovel is a melee weapon, and melee weapons are based on strength. So the more strength I have, the more damage it does, right? Of course I'm right. I went to that college that's famous for that thing, so of course I'm not wrong. I maxed out strength, and tried to keep all the other skills as even as possible, except for perception. And I chose melee, science, and speech as my tag skills, because if I can't beat you to death with my mighty shovel, I might as well talk you to death while brandishing my mighty shovel. I ended up choosing skilled and heavy-handed as my traits because everyone chooses skill for the extra 5 points to all skills, and heavy-handed because it will allow me to deal more damage at the cost of less critical damage. You can call me crazy if you like, but I don't think a shovel is going to be dealing too much critical damage in the first place, so I'll take the risk for this one. Once I was cleared from the good doctor to go out and wander the wastes alone, there was only one place I had to go in order to let the real fun begin. Chet in Good Springs always has a shovel to sell at the start of the game, and he is a reliable source of shovels when it comes to buying more. Buy the shovel, wait a few days, and he'll have another. All you need to do is rinse and repeat until you have a pretty good shovel stockpile, worth hitting even the ugliest of ducklings with it. And it is here that the game truly begins. I talked with Sunny Smiles for help, not that I needed it, but what I did need was the experience. You see how quickly I killed those geckos? That was the game screwing with me. You'll see later why that is. In the meantime, I decided it was best to wait a few days in order to get another shovel from Chet to repair the current one I have, so that way it'll deal more damage. Once my Wastelander beater was all patched up and ready to go, I decided it was time to talk to Trudy about Ringo and the Powder Ganger situation. I chose to help Ringo because I'll never do evil playthroughs, and Ringo asked me to recruit others for the cause. I spoke to Sunny Smiles and got her to agree to help as always, followed by Trudy, which is almost always easy, depending on if you decide not to work with speech skills. I went back up to Ringo to tell him of my success in gathering brainless followers to do our bidding, and was told by Sunny Smiles that the Powder Gangers were here to take the town. And it was here that I found out just how terrible the shovel was gonna be. You would normally expect to hit them over and over and over again until they stopped moving, but that's not what happened here. They can block you, which causes you to get somewhat stun-locked for just a brief second, which leaves you open to attack by other enemies should there be any nearby. In this case, the stun wasn't anything too big to worry about, but in later fights, you better believe that this will become a problem if not taken into consideration. Let me try to put this in simple words for you. The shovel is not a terrible weapon if used against enemies during low-level encounters, such as the convicts in Prim or the powder gangers around NCRCF. However, the shovel is absolutely terrible against enemies like the Legion troops or something more angry like Deathclaws. Speaking of Prim, while there I killed the convicts holding the would-be deputy hostage and agreed to find law for the town. Still lacking enough bloodshed, I decided to wander the waste for things to dig graves for, and only ended up killing a few ants before finally taking down the Jackal gang members, which I gotta say wasn't all that hard. Sure, the ones that can use melee weapons and can block you were a pain, yeah, but for the ones that used guns like wannabe plebs, they were nothing but a cakewalk. It's worth noting at this point that in low-level areas, the shovel is not all that bad if used against enemies that cannot block you. If you have plenty of stim packs, it's not really hard to tank through the punishment and lay waste to the scum that is now red paste below your boots. I made my way to Nipton, killed Oliver Swanwick because he never deserves to live in any playthrough, made my way up to the NCR outpost, traveled down the railroad tracks to discover Hidden Valley, and talked to Neil for just a minute before continuing on to make my way around the Deathclaws. I was off to RepCon headquarters to see just how well my mighty shovel can stand against the mechanized units that are the Mr. Handies. It wasn't bad, I guess. Certainly not as bad as some other weapons, I suppose, but I didn't like my odds of gathering the patrol logs just yet, seeing as how I was low on healing supplies. I walked all the way to New Vegas to sell off any of my unnecessary junk to the gunrunners, as well as bought some new armor to help keep my insides from being my outsides. I did a somewhat okay photo shoot of my character on fire, and I entered the Old Mormon Fort to buy all the health supplies they had for life. I must have been waiting a while, because I now suddenly feel very old and very cranky. No matter though, because my next stop was the Tops Casino to do some damage with the mighty Shovel of Justice. The chairman had no armor, so killing them was actually pretty easy. Even Benny went down without much of a fight. Once I had the platinum chip in my possession, I was off to the Boomers to earn their trust for the upcoming Battle of Hoover Dam. I went to the array for the fast travel aspect, and went to Nipton to go ahead and kill the Legion there. I had killed Volpez after leaving the Tops Casino and getting the mark of Little Caesar, and I had to know what would happen if this occurred. And boy, let me tell you, I was not disappointed.
Ha! And we were just finishing up here. To think that we might have missed you. If anyone belongs on a cross, it's you. For your crimes against the Legion, you will die.
There was in fact a new person here to take his place, Gavin, who also gives you some new dialogue to hear on the off chance that you do exactly what it is that I've just done. He doesn't give you anything new to say, like you could to Volpez, but regardless, it was very appreciated and amused me greatly. When all the screaming and shooting was done, all the Legion troops were dead on the ground, and I was now heading to Novak, where I suddenly saw this gem running by at the speed of sound. No longer distracted by Wonder Man running by, I focused back on my mission. I wasn't going to Novak for them. I was going to Helios 1 to try to grind up more XP for the sake of making the endgame easier to deal with. But before that, I had a stroke and changed my mind. I am now going to Prim to help bring law back to the town while doing some missions for Ranger Jackson. And it was here that I got the skill I was desperately trying to achieve. Super Slam requires you be level 8, have 6 strength, and melee weapons at 45 points. It states that all melee weapons except thrown and unarmed have a chance to knock down enemies. If this works like I think it does, it will be a game changer without a doubt. There was only one place I knew of that I could test it with this degree of entertainment, and it was the NCRCF, where I had plenty of test subjects to try it out on. Needless to say, because of their low level, I killed them far easier than I was anticipating, so I never got to see the Super Slam perk take effect while I was there. Moving on, I was now going to be a bounty hunter. There were 3 fiends that had bounties on their head, and I was more than happy to collect. I started with the one I knew would give me the most trouble, Driver Nephi. He uses a golf club, which means he can block my attacks, just as much as I can block his. After a good while, he finally went down, where only 2 fiends now remained. Violet wasn't much of a challenge, and neither was Cook. Once I had all 3 heads, I could hear the sound of money raining down. though it's not like I really needed it. After turning in all the heads, it was high time I went back to Helios 1 to do the thing I was going to do, and by God, this was stressful. Because I'm using a shovel, I cannot fight back against the auto turrets that are peppering me with lead. The Mr. Gutsy was actually quite tough and took many swings to bring down, unlike the Mr. Handy counterparts. And the Protectrons were also a bit of a pain. All in all, this was not pleasant. However, I am glad I held off to do this so that way I could get more supplies and levels under my belt. And here I'm going to skip a lot of the filler because I don't think any of it's really necessary to the gameplay. But I got more supplies from the followers, went to Vault 22 and got the research data, and decided not to help Keeley while I was there. I then went to Vault 19 to kill off the powder gangers there, because I hate having to hear their outro in every playthrough. So I was settling an extremely long score by ensuring none of them would make it out alive. Next, I was going to wipe out the Great Khans, and it's here that I ran into some trouble. When the Super Slam perk takes effect, the enemy you are engaged with will fall down and be stunned. However, if they were blocking you when they went down, they will still be there blocking you as they lay on the floor. Meaning you can only get about 2 hits in before they get back up if you don't somehow stun them again. After that entire fiasco was done, I wiped out the Khans and went to face my fears. I returned back to RepCon headquarters to retrieve the mission logs so that I can get the Brotherhood of Steel ready for action. This part wasn't actually all that bad, which was a huge pain lifted off my back, but I still wasn't done yet. I went to the boomers to get the mission log there. Lastly, there was Black Mountain that I needed to deal with, and for some reason, the mutants at the top were not hostile. For once, I was actually getting the easy treatment, and I wasn't about to take it for granted. Once I was in the compound, I decided to try something different, because I was on a roll and I wanted to see if there was any way to get Tabitha out without freeing Raoul. So I repaired Rhonda, thinking that it would actually take me to her, and instead I got this.
Rhonda? Is that you?
It is, Mistress Tabitha. How I've missed you so. This stranger here fixed me up right as rain. Is he a friend of yours?
I don't know how to thank you for bringing Rhonda back to me, stranger. Here, take this. I won't be needing it anymore. I don't know.
Mistress Tabitha, we
I
should
don't
be heading
even
off.
remember where we were
Our
going.
journey has been
It'll
much
be good
delayed,
to travel
but we
around
can
with
catch up
Rhonda
if we hurry.
again.
Come along now.
Yes, Rhonda.
After processing what I had just seen, I went to get the third and last mission log. Once that was completed, I went and talked to the Brotherhood, settled things with the Ranger, reported back to the Elder to lend assistance even more. Again, I encountered a bug where if you leave the bunker before the Elder makes it to the control room, he will stand in place and not move, making his questline a dead end. The only fix? Reload a previous save and do the whole thing over. Which I did, and I was not happy about it. I have never encountered this on console, which is probably why consoles are far better than PCs. Less bugs and better support for their games. Always a win. Anyways, after that was all done, I was told to find the scouts. I did that and came back to move the questline along. And again, if you think I'm skipping a lot of content, don't worry, I'm not. I'm traveling around and hitting things with a shovel. There's only so many ways I can talk about that. While in Vault 11, I faced possibly the hardest challenge yet in the Sacrificial Chamber. Despite having all the stim packs that I could ever want, I was fairly certain that I would run out due to the amount of health the robots had versus my lack of meaningful damage. Once I had gotten all the parts for the Brotherhood of Steel's bunker, I returned to inform Knight Lorenzo of the good news and decided to help out Scribe Ibsen with his virus problem. Now granted, this little quest is one of the most hated ones in New Vegas. However, not many people know about this trick that helps make it far easier. You see, there's this little switch right here that if you angle your camera right in third-person mode, you can still access and manipulate it. What this switch does is only force 3 terminals to be active. After Ibsen tells you the virus is jumped, activate the switch and go to the 3 terminals that are active and lock the virus down. Granted, it is a skill check, but hey, for the peace of mind, I won't knock it. This has been saving my life for years, and I'm actually surprised that not many people know about this. My theory is that this switch was either part of the quest as a way to reward clever gamers, or it was a quick test feature the devs used to test out and ensure that it was random and beatable. I completed the mission to set up the module at Black Mountain, became an official member of the Brotherhood of Steel, and with the Brotherhood of Steel now on my side, I was off to gain the trust of the kings in Freeside. Once I arrived to the king's headquarters, I decided to mess with Pacer by offering 500 caps just to see his reaction. It was about what I was expecting, but I was kinda wanting more. Normally, I just use the speech check to say I want to pay my respects to the king. However, I was wanting to try something new. My first assignment was to handle Oris and him being shady. That was easy because I have just enough intelligence to know when something's being fishy. I talked to the king and reported that Oris was a fraud, and with that, I had another assignment. Some people from Freeside were attacked and taken to the old Moron fort to recover, and wait, I read that wrong, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Dang it. Some people from Freeside were attacked and taken to the old Mormon fort to recover, and I was to ask about the events that had taken place. According to the victims, they were attacked by NCR because one of them was identified by rank. The game crashed here because why wouldn't it? And I had to listen to the entire explanation all over again. With this new information, I had to now figure out why the NCR is attacking Freeside locals, and that all starts with Julie Farkas, which led me to Major Elizabeth Karen to ask why locals were being attacked. She explains that locals are refused service because of an envoy being nearly killed when they reached the king's headquarters, so now locals are treated poorly as a result. Pacer overheard the conversation somehow, good writing Obsidian, and the king was shocked of my findings and demanded I go make peace with the NCR and stop Pacer from screwing things up. After everything was done, I had the king ready to make peace once I talked to Ambassador Crocker. After our talks, it was back to work to finish the Boomers questline to get them on my side. I went back to Nellis, where I talked to Loyal about the lady in the water. I then talked to Jack about not drowning while bringing back the lady in the water. Went to Camp Golf because I needed the lucky 38 VIP key, jumped into the water and raised the lady of the water from Lake Mead. I returned to Loyal to let him know everything was all set and that he could bring the plane back. I then talked to Pearl about getting her help in the second battle, and I reported back with my success with recruiting the Boomers to the cause. Next, I was tasked with handling the kings. This was already completed, and all I had to do was ask the king to do his part, and I reported back to Crocker, where apparently I've been making waves because now Colonel Moore wanted to speak with me. You might be wondering, how come I don't talk about all the antics I pulled while playing the game? Surely I did other things while playing the game, like looting or killing random things. Nope. Besides the moments when I'm grinding to gain levels, which I will talk about, I don't really pull antics or do random things for the sake of being random. I'm here on a mission to beat the game, not find enjoyment. If I did, I wouldn't be making this video. If my videos were monetized, maybe I would, in order to pad it out a bit. But looking at the analytics, my videos drop after about the 2 or 3 minute mark, so longer is not always better. Continuing on with the plot, I've been making my way to Hoover Dam, and I finally met with Colonel Cassandra Moore, where she was already prepared to assign me more work. She wanted the Great Khans taken out of the picture, while I shattered that picture already and told her that they wouldn't be a problem anymore. Next, she wanted me to handle some concerning information about the strip. Apparently, the Omertas have been busy with something big, and I needed to shut it down, so I was off to the strip to bring down one of the 3 families. I talked to the receptionist about getting dirt on them, but she only told me to talk to Kachino. I stole his journal and told him that he had to help me take the bosses down. He agreed, and I talked to Troik and got him out of his deal with the Omertas, and I then had to deal with the part that always gives me trouble. I cannot attack anything because my shovel was taken away, so Kachino has to be the one to take the bosses out. He has very low health, so he normally dies unless you can get lucky. Fortunately for me, this only took 2 attempts, and I had only one last objective on my list. Mr. House needs to die, and with the VIP key in my possession, I had everything I needed to handle this. The Securitrons were a bit tough, but nothing worse than I've faced so far. I disconnected House from his network, felt bad for doing it by the way, and with that, I was off to inform Colonel Moore of my success. She was a bit unhappy about me sparing the Brotherhood, but if she doesn't want to establish peace with my brothers in arms, then I suggest she go cry into a blender. Now was the moment of dire stress. I had to get ready for the President's arrival. You know, the good one, not the real one. I wouldn't lend a finger to a system to protect that moron. Now, I know there are many ways to do this quest and to finish it, but my main go-to, and in fact my only go-to, is to inspect the vertibird and defuse the bomb, to make the president leave and to bring us to the cusp of the end of the game. I left to go get my things repaired because I wasn't going to go into this unprepared, and I told General Oliver that I would take care of the Legion invasion on the dam, which, let me say, sucked so freaking hard. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever done, but with the whole blocking aspect showing its ugly face again, I would have been very grateful for a pistol or a rifle or just anything that couldn't be blocked. Once I was topside, it was more of the same as below. I fought all the Legion soldiers that I could and struggled with the ones that had melee weapons, while being shot to death by the ones with guns, and I was losing stimpaks very quickly. I made it to the Legate's camp and was nearing the endgame proper. I killed all the Legion troops I could and faced the Legate not as a soldier but as a diplomat, because if you think I was going to fight him with a shovel, you are both wrong and poor. The Legate was moved by my words and left to return another day, and it was time to talk one more time to General Oliver. I walked to the gate and it exploded in an unnecessary display of swag. I confirmed with Oliver that the Mojave was indeed ours, and I beat Fallout New Vegas with only a shovel. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you didn't enjoy this video, leave a dislike. And if you have any ideas for Fallout New Vegas challenges that you would like to see, post them in the comment section below for a chance at having it come true.